Okay. Hi, everyone. Danny here from California. And I wanted to share, share with you the discussions that I'm holding with different agents, such as James, and I'll introduce him in a second, about the different markets. And today we're going to talk about the metro of Dallas-Fort Worth, DFW. And I requested James. I speak to the agents routinely every other week or so, and we catch up on the market and the market trends and challenges. And our always discussions, there's always a wish that I would record every single conversation I'm having with every field person, agent or property managers, because there's so much fine details that are going through and discussions that I was like, I wish I can record it and let you benefit from it as well. You know what? Here it is. We're trying to do that. So we're going to have a conversation, James and I, like we do every once in a while. We spoke 2 days ago and 3 days ago and 2 weeks ago. And I said, James, we can't just keep it to ourselves. We have to share it with the crowd. People need to understand what's going on in the market. What can we do? How can we benefit? Our conversations are always, okay, how can we improve our systems, our strategies, our executions, our methods? This is always the fine line to benefit you. Purely said, to benefit you. We all understand that if we find better ways for you, the investor, to benefit from our methods, then you will be happy. And if you're happy, James is happy, and I'm happy. So that's purely what it is. So we have this conversation every once in a while. We're going to have just a free-flowing conversation about the market, about strategies, about ideas, so you can learn and benefit and and execute better. James and I, or James and SimplyDoIt, have been working for some time now, a few years. The broker that James is under, his name is Jerry, and Jerry is the property manager as well. And Jerry and I go back, 7, 8 years, maybe 6 years or so. So a very long time, multiple properties. He's not on the conversation because I wanted to focus this on more the acquisition of real estate. So I'm going to turn over the conversation, or I will have the conversation to James now. And James, why don't we start with give us a fresh update on the metro, like at large, what works, what's going on, maybe worthy mentions such as big developments or future development, so we get a little bit more of an overview, and then we can dive into other parts. Why don't you take over and start by that?
Okay. Hey, Danny. Good to talk with everybody today. The DFW market is it's a big market, and in this area, it's competitive. That's what we have to know. It's competitive. There's still stuff out there for us. When I send properties over to Danny and SimplyDoIt, there's still stuff out there, but it's a competitive market. With the iBuyers out there, the open doors, those guys are picking up houses now that normally would have been on the market with a regular transaction. So the pool that we see of the unrefined investment property is getting smaller, only because there's a lot of buyers or sellers, that are really going for the convenience, which I think is it's really cutting into the investors buying properties. So you see less and less, say from me, only because a lot of times we're getting beat out by somebody who never talks to a realtor now. They just do it all online. So realtors are really working around that and trying to deal with that and find strategies to deal with that. But the Dallas-Fort Worth market, as always, number one, simply put, is a stable market. That's what I would tell any investor about DFW. It's stable. Just Google it, look it up. Look what happened in the last recession and other. I can't speak for every market in the country or the world, but in the last recession, the DFW market held its own. We didn't lose money. We didn't make a lot of money in that recession, but property values increased. And when the country's going gangbusters, it might not be a San Diego. It might not increase 15% a quarter, but we do have those 10% years. We have those 8% years. But when things go bad, we also have the 1% years and not the negative 20% years. And that's what I tell people about Dallas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A lot of the area, some negative stuff, a lot of the areas have increased in price so much that our rent has not kept up. Now, eventually they will, but it'll take some time. So there's pockets of areas in it. And if you see the emails, the properties I send, they're kind of all in the same general area, south of Fort Worth and Dallas, and in between Fort Worth and Dallas. The northern part has kind of been priced out, but the cool thing about that also is on the other, looking at it from the other end, the investor who bought in the northern Dallas area 6-7 years ago that's selling today, they're making a bundle. So that's Dallas for you. We're still in that area where our investors can buy in these southern parts in the middle DFW area, hold for a while, lease it out to tenants, 1 or 2, 3, 4, however it goes. But in the future, you're going to make some money off that investment property. The opportunity is still there here. It's just in a different area than it was 4 or 5 years ago. But it is fun to watch the investor who's bought in the northern area, even some that have bought a couple of years ago in the southern areas, who sell maybe quicker than I would say, but it's, that's of course their call. But how much money they make in that time, in that 2 or 3 years, it's still pretty amazing for the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay, so let me kind of recap or just emphasize a few things. So first of all, DFW, Dallas-Fort Worth, Dallas is the main center of gravity on one side, and Fort Worth is on the other, I would say, a secondary center of gravity. Obviously, Dallas is stronger, so I would say this is more like this and this, but everything in between and surrounding is part of the metro. So we got 2 centers of gravity, a stronger one and a smaller one, not a weaker one, but a smaller one, and everything in between is the metro. However, it's very much pockets. So it's not necessarily that, in the middle, there are areas that are better and not as good, right? Areas that we would like to buy in and areas we would probably like to avoid, and sometimes they're not too far apart. So there's a lot of pockets throughout the metro. Now, Dallas is, or the DFW metro, is a very large by population. Are we at 6 million already, roughly, or getting there?
6 to 8. I would say more along 8 million.
8 million already? Are you sure? I thought it's always like just getting to be 6 or so, but maybe I'm wrong.
And you might be right on that. You might be right. The last time was we're getting up to 8.
Nonetheless, it's a large metro with large presence of industries and employers in different sizes. That's what gives it the stability. Now, I can say, I remember during the last recession, you're absolutely right, Dallas, the DFW on average went up about 1%, which is, nobody wants that, but to go around 1% a year during a time that a lot of metros around the country are going down, that's amazing. That's not good, that's amazing. Right, so that means it's very stable, very long-term buy and hold with a stable local economy. So those are the things that we like about the DFW. However, we're seeing still in good areas, good houses, strong demand or strong competition. And now we even have a new breed of buyers, which is the iBuyers. And maybe you should explain that the iBuyers, who's someone who doesn't know, is a new category of companies. Like 𝐒𝐤𝐦 is getting into that. 𝐒𝐤𝐦 hasn't rolled out entirely, but they're getting into it. But there's Open Door and something Front Door or something like that, another company. And few other companies that are going into this category that are practically buying on a large scale, and they're kind of affecting us, mostly affecting us because they're becoming our competition. They're not always, but sometimes, or affecting the market competition-wise. And then we always have the normal competition from the market, which are just homeowners, maybe other investors, but primarily homeowners that we are competing against. Is that fair description of the environment, of buying environment?
Yes, it is. And it only works, I think the iBuyer only works if you really put the numbers together. The convenience charge that the iBuyer, the Zillow offers, the open doors, it only works with houses where people who've had them for a while and they've got a lot of equity and they're paying a lot in convenience fees. So for me to list and sell a house for somebody who's had it for 10 years, they're going to save a lot more money using me. But they don't see all that paperwork until kind of they're all the way through the process. So, when I charge, let's just say 6%, let's just say it's 6%. Your iBuyer is more in the 10 to 12. If you look at it, that's what they're charging when you put it all down, and they usually don't see all that up front. They don't see all the repairs. They just are sold on, you don't have to show your house. And that's an amazing thing that's a phenomenon that is unbelievable how that's affecting the market. You don't have to have anybody show your house. No, we'll put we'll charge you, in the end, but we'll put new carpet in here. Don't worry about the paint. We'll do all that after you're out. So DFW is, if you've read about, they all started kind of in Phoenix, Arizona, and now they're really branching out. So some markets aren't dealing with this, but they all will eventually. DFW is dealing with it right now, and we're all strategizing how to deal with it. But at the time, real estate sometimes and realtors are slow to change. I'll be the first to admit it. I've been in the industry for a long time, not as just a realtor, but also on the title side. And I just know for a fact realtors are slow to change, but it's really starting to cut in because the houses that come on the market for the investors, there's a smaller pool now. We have to deal with those. Summertime, you're dealing with families. They're going to pay top dollar. The investor doesn't want to do that. So, now we're swinging into the fall when school's in. So now with the houses that I'm sending now, this is a great, now vacancy might be a little higher. I mean, it just makes sense. Not as many people are looking to rent. I don't want to leave that out. Vacancy, you should expect probably a little higher vacancy in that time in the fall, especially the first part of fall before you get into holiday season stuff. But this is a great time to buy in this market. But the problem is it is super competitive. And houses here, we don't have houses that look great on paper that have been on the market for 90 days that we can scoop up. That's the problem in this area. What I send usually is in the if it looks good on paper day one, I'll send it the first day it's on the market, or it could be 2 weeks on the market.
Okay.
Go ahead, Danny. Sorry.
So I just want to clarify a few things. What you're saying is it's not that the rental market in DFW is soft. We are entering the winter, which is usually the winter, which we're talking about holidays, takes a little bit longer to rent than summertime, right? It's not
Exactly.
It's just a seasonality of the rental market. It's not there's no problem with renting houses, at least not in the areas we are in. During the winter, it just takes a little bit longer because it's winter and holidays.
Sure.
Attention same of renters.
And it works the same on the sell side. Most people don't want to sell their house October 1, but for whatever reason they have to. And that's the opportunity. That's where we see the opportunity to jump in.
Explain that a little bit better. Why would someone have to sell October 1? Or just using October 1 as a random date?
Well, if somebody needs to sell October 1 and has no choice to, I would rather sell in May, just like we try to get our leases to end in May.
Right.
But if I lose my job, I don't have savings, I might have to sell my house.
Gotcha.
That's the quickest one. Divorce, number 2.
So October 1 is a random date of indicating winter starting, not a specific reason.
Sure.
Someone will. Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
There's a million reasons why, but I would say those are probably the top 2. Okay. And with the people who, when I'm leasing houses, and I'm showing houses, I try to, talk and, get some rapport. A lot of people are going through divorce. It's just part of, that's just part of the gig, I would say, in real estate.
So, James, let's see, what are the things we, the collective, you, me, the active investor, that we can do in order to increase our chances, not just getting a house, but also getting a good deal and a good property altogether, good in the largest sense of the word. And I just want to emphasize that the SimplyDoIt way is not just let's find properties left and right blindly. It all goes through scrutiny of filtering, areas, school, analysis, rent, financial analysis, etc. So we don't just say, hey, here's a property because it shows on the MLS. It goes through some filterization. Actually, I would say quite a bit of a filterization. So to pick the cherry picking from the market, right? That's that's what we expect. And that creates more challenge for us, because when you cherry pick, you gotta find those good cherries if they're available. So we talked about a couple of things, how we can optimize the process. Why don't we go over, why don't you mention a few of those things that we as investor, I as a buyer who's listening right now, can do in order to increase the chances of getting a property, getting the right property, getting for the right price, and not just buying for the sake of buying because I'm anxious to buy, or I'm already frustrated that I've attempted a few times. We have those too. We have a few investors that are kept sending offers, and they're probably frustrated from the process, and they may even blame you and me for not doing good enough of a job, although it's exactly the other way around. Right.
So when I send a house and somebody's interested, I am cherry picking from I'm looking at MLS, and I've got a criteria that I look at. And if something looks good, I run it through the Excel. And if something looks good, I send it in to SimplyDoIt. And if somebody wants to see the house, if somebody shows interest in it, then I go to the house and I actually take videos. I walk the house, and I've gotten pretty good at picking good houses that look good when I get there. Sometimes I just text the person, no go. I'll send you, when I get back, I'm gonna upload the videos to Dropbox, but this is just not gonna work. Sometimes the professional photographers and all that, they can do some amazing things today. I would say number one about getting a house at a price that you want or you're happy with is first, number one, get in the game. Get in there. Let's try something. Let's go. Now, again, this is a competitive market. There's a lot going on here. So a low ball offer, you'll learn pretty soon that those don't probably work. But writing offers is the best way to see what we can do. We have to get in the game. You're never going to score a touchdown. You're never going to kick a goal if you're not off the sideline. You got to get in the game. And that's what I would say to people. Just because the Excel doesn't look perfect, and just because when I take the video there might be something there, there's a lot of things I do in between that part. We ask for repairs. Jerry Ryan, property manager, when we get our list together, I can send him a list. He can give me an average of what repairs are, and then we can say, okay, we want this off the house, so we can decrease the price of the house this much. In that way, another thing that when I'm talking to the listing agent of a house, I say they know this is an investor coming in, and I go, this investor is serious. They're not somebody who's going to flake out on you. Now, if we find something terrible in the house that's just catastrophic, I can't promise you anything that's going to go, but I always try to sell them on this is a serious investor who wants to make sure and get through this process. You will not believe how much that helps in the process and getting in there, because the number one thing a listing agent wants to do is sell the house. They want to get, and they don't want to have somebody, a buyer who just drops out at the last second because of some other reason. Those are kind of the things that I do to through the process to make sure it works. But it only works if we're in the game. But of course, every investor is different on what they want. So we have to find those houses that look good at first. And again, DFW is super competitive. So we have to kind of accept what we get at first. And I always like to look at it, think a tenant down the road, after somebody moves out, we increase the rent $100. You know, rent increases here, just like house prices. My property taxes went up this year in Dallas, and that's something that, you know, we talk about, and other areas deal with it too, but Texas is kind of property tax, and, you know, everybody fights them, and that's just kind of part of it. But my house also increased. I can't believe it, how much it increased. So there's always two sides to each coin. Yeah, our property taxes went up, but our house prices went up too. But those are some of the kind of tangible things that I do through the process of securing, writing an offer and securing a house under contract is, I would say, the ultimate first goal. But you don't have to, and it doesn't cost a nickel for you to do that here. To secure a property, get it under contract where they've changed the status in MLS. But it only works if we write an offer.
Okay, so number one is engagement with you submitting an offer. Okay, that's number one. That's very important. And we talked about a few more things. The other thing that we talked about is the price segment. And according to conversation we had earlier this week, you said, please correct me if I'm wrong here, the price segment of about 150 to 175 is super, super competitive with very low inventory, you know, for obvious reasons. But if we shift to, let's say, 190 or 200 to 250 in that range, maybe even 225, we don't compromise the rent and the cash flow, and we get a better, probably a higher chance of buying, getting a property. Plus, most likely, we will go up in the quality of the area and the home itself. Is that a correct way to say that? Agreed.
Yeah, anything under 200,000 here is it's competitive, and to get it under what list price is, unless it's just really, unless the listing agent has somehow just really got the price wrong, which they usually don't. They usually are pretty good.
Happens, but rarely, but does.
It definitely happens. And a lot of that is they're letting the seller kind of control. Oh, this is what I think it should be. And they just want to get the listing, so we'll deal with it later. Let's put it on what they want, and then we'll come down. But it is super competitive, and that's why a lot of times when if I have a house that's 179,000, I'll put in there my offer I'll put in there what the list price is. Rarely ever, though, let's say even if we get a house under contract, do we actually pay that number with repairs, with things like that. But I do see opportunity over 200,000. There's opportunity there. Houses do sit a little longer in the plus $200,000 range. They always have. I think I ran the numbers the other day of houses that have sat on the market for 90 plus. And this is let's say me and Danny are the 6 million, 8 million, let's say 7 million area, 7 million population area. Under 200,000 houses that have been on the market 90 days, there were only 12. That's insane. That just, and those are, and the areas I looked at are, our MLS is kind of big. It's got some cities that I don't even travel to because they're so far south or they're so far north. They're out of the DFW area. Half of them were in those areas, and the other half were in areas that I would never recommend buying. So houses don't sit that long on the market here. So a lot of times when you see the stuff that I send, if it's 180, if it's 220, it's been on the market maybe 2 days. But look at that still as an opportunity. It's still an opportunity. If it's got some cash flow and SimplyDoIt Excel, it's got opportunity in it right off the bat, which is very hard here to do. And I run numbers every day. I'll send multiple at a time when I can, or I'll send one at a time when I can. But if you're making some cash flow right off the bat in the DFW area, you're doing good. And then down the road, you're doing better because rents increase and the house increases. And if for some reason, like we said earlier, the market has been tested in recessions and the market kind of stabilizes here. It kind of, we don't go LA and we don't lose 30% of value. We don't do what happens in Las Vegas, where you have collapses. We stabilize. So there's a lot of upside to the area, but at first we just have to get in the game. And I don't know all the areas and how the numbers work there, but here, if you're making some cash flow, 179, 100, 200 bucks a month, that's a great start for DFW. It really, really is. Because you look at tenant 2, tenant 3 down the road, you're really going to be happy at where you're at then. Once we start flipping tenants, rent increases. A lot of houses I've bought for people, we have built-in rent increase. They never move out. They just stay. And then, we just send them a note that says, okay, if you want to renew for another year, here's the new market price. And they never move out. Now, some people do move out, but there's a million ways. There's a million things that can happen while you have your house. But I think the number one goal is to get in DFW, get in the game. Get in there, write some offers, put something down, and let's see what happens.
So I want to emphasize one important point and maybe suggest how someone can actually take something from something very productive from this conversation. We talked about, explanation, but now let's put it in the execution. So first of all, I want to say DFW is maybe not your cash cow, strong cash flow area. It does compensate by stable economy, no guarantees, but stable economy. Historically, we've seen that, and a good, strong projection for the future of slow and steady growth. So there's a trade-off, right? There's a trade-off there, and not everybody wants one or the other, but that's something you got to remember, especially when we are in times that we've been seeing a decade-long or almost a decade-long of steady, not so steady, high-rate growth in multiple real estate markets. We know that there's a cycle of economy. We don't know when it's going to happen. That doesn't mean we're heading into a recession. That doesn't mean we're heading into a crash. But we've been through almost a decade of high growth. So maybe we're getting closer to the peak. And by the way, even if we are, For me, it's never been an issue because I buy and I want to hold it for the next 10, 15 years. That's what we're looking to do. So we're probably going to face one, maybe even two down cycles, but the important is what the overall path of growth of the metro. Growth being population, jobs, and of course, real estate. So that's something to remember. Now, talking about some next steps or executions, I think what we talked about as a good strategy for someone is, number one, we talked about engagement. Number two, consider going to the 2 to 250 range, or maybe give or take, maybe even 2 to 225, and start submitting offers. You don't have to go lowball offers, but just start engaging and maybe trying to. And if we can see houses that have been sitting a little bit longer on the market, which there are, but if they fit, our profile of an area, a neighborhood, etc., then we can be a little bit more aggressive with our offer. If the house is still in that price range, but it's not been sitting for a long time, then maybe be a little bit less aggressive. But the most important point: engage, start submitting offers. Let's do it. I would even say let James go ahead and submit offers almost blindly. I've done that before, or blindly. If you trust him, you feel comfortable, maybe you have to build that first and let him submit offers. We don't take any property that we got under contract. We only buy what makes sense or works, from all aspects, financially, area, condition, etc. So we are cherry picking. It just have to work a little bit differently in order to speed up the process and to get get something better for you. Just find a better way to do it a little bit faster. You can keep getting emails from James about the cherry picking, but James is sending the tip of the iceberg. Once he engages with one of the investors more closely, there are properties that you may not be able to see because he works with on one-on-one. Not that we're hiding anything, it's just the nature of the relationship. So engage, consider going above 200-ish, low 200, is submit offers, and then consider the offer amount based on the time the house has been sitting on the market. And then your chances of getting a property, and a good one, increases dramatically. Correct?
Correct.
Perfect.
Correct. Can I mention one thing too? For those not familiar, you can't see, but I'm looking at a map right now that I've got in front of my computer. Those who aren't familiar with the DFW area, you'll look at some of these cities that I send and you'll say, wow, that city is 42 miles from Dallas, or it's this far from. This is a commuter area, okay? It's a commuter. DFW is 45 minutes here. And what has happened in the last 10 to 12 years as far as our infrastructure for roads and tollways, for me, I live north in the northern area, but most of my work, it would be more convenient for me to live down south for sure. And it has been super inconvenient with all the construction and everything that's been going on in the last 10 years to get south of Dallas and all that. That work has all started to really complete in the tollways and the toll roads. So when you get on Google Maps and you put in there Midlothian, Texas, or Waxahachie, or some of these other cities are Forney, and you see, wow, that's 45 minutes from downtown Dallas. 45 minutes here is nothing. That's a nothing commute for most people who live here. Some people, I want to make sure and get that clear. It's a very commuter area. Okay, people travel. Before I got into the realtor side, I traveled all over the country, and 45 miles in LA is a lot different than 45 miles in DFW. Trust me on that. Okay.
I think I'm glad you're bringing this one up because it's an important point. It comes out a lot. And we also have to remind people that not everybody is commuting to Dallas. It's not exactly. Like if you're 45 minutes away, either direction, a lot of the employment centers are scattered either on the outskirts or one of the beltways around Dallas, or even closer. It's not every single person. One of the family household, which you usually target families, commutes into the downtown. Many do, some do, but some of them commute. It may be 45 minutes, but they're only commuting 20 minutes towards Dallas, but staying closer. So
Right.
a lot of those, beltways of roads and are their own individual employment centers scattered all over. So it's just not, and on the top of that, many people just do commute, and that's normal. That's okay. Absolutely. Good. So I want to wrap up with what we talked about, how to execute. I'm glad we were able to bring, the market, the field to us. I think it's very helpful. The best way to get, if you're already an active SimplyDoIt investor, I think you know what to do. If you're listening and you're still not sure what to do, or even if Dallas is the right one for you, get in touch with me, with us. Let's have a conversation. We start the process with just talking about real estate at large and your needs before we even talk about real estate. And then we slip it down to which market is relevant for you. And we then, once we start the process, we will put you in touch with James. So James can work and help you find properties in the DFW area. And of course, we have property management in place and lenders, everything that you need to execute and to buy rental properties. Those of you, some of our investors already doing that. Some are just listening and don't know that we have the entire solution provided. I call it a turnkey operation. You don't have to find lenders, you don't have to find insurance people, etc. We have it all. Not just we have it, it's vetted, it's trained. We train the agents, we work with the agents, we help them become better agents, because we know once we invest into our infrastructure of resources such as James, everybody will benefit. And I really mean everybody will benefit. That's how the perception that we have. So you're most welcome to get in touch with me, Danny, SimplyDoIt, online, Facebook, however you see, and then once, however you see fit. And once we start working, you will get the chance to work with James directly on finding properties in DFW. James, thank you very much for the time, for the information. I think this is very productive, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Danny.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.